What's up, everybody, in all the streaming platforms? This is another draft show with my boys Mike and Armand. As you see, Mike is getting ready to come back to the screen. He had an Auburn fan trying to hack his stream, either Auburn or a Saints fan, either or. But he's about to be on here in just a second. But there he goes. I told y'all, Saints fan was trying to hack his stream real quick. But again, hey, Mike, Armand, y'all boys, welcome back, man.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Ready to rock and roll, doing those dirty birds today.
Yes, sir. That ratchet football team downtown. But before we get started on these lovely Atlanta Falcons, let's hit this quick preview real quick.
Today we only cover one team, and that is the 2023 Atlanta Falcons. Coming into 2022, many expected this team to be the worst team in the league. And surprisingly, the Falcons were in playoff and NFC South contention deep into the season up until about week 15. Led in the first few weeks by Marcus Mariota, the Falcons got out to a 4-4 start and was in first place at one point in the season, but they kept having an up and down, back and forth year, which ended up seeing Marcus Mariota lose his starting spot to rookie Desmond Ridder, who played the last 4 games in which he went with a 2-2 finish. So it looks like the Atlanta Falcons will possibly give Desmond Ridder the opportunity to be the starting quarterback in 2023. Entering 2023 free agency, the Falcons went in with $65 million and several draft picks, including the number 8 pick in the draft. And the Falcons have been very active since the start of free agency. They traded a 7th-round pick for former Patriots tight end Jonnu Smith, who once played with Arthur Smith in Tennessee. They also added former Cincinnati Bengals free safety Jesse Bates, who was a really solid all-pro for the Bengals, now joining the Falcons secondary. Also, a couple of former New Orleans Saints players in David Onyemata, the 30-year-old D tackle, and Caden Ellis, who had a really good 2022 season for the Saints. And I'm sure a lot of that had to do with the addition of new coordinator Ryan Nielsen on defense, with the loss of Dean Pease, who retired after the 2022 season. Now, we will get into the free agency moves, the direction of the roster, our outlook on the Falcons' biggest needs, and also what our personal mocks and what the actual NFL mocks are saying that the Atlanta Falcons will do at number 8. Up next, your Atlanta Falcons.
All right. Leading off talking about the Falcons, as y'all know, as you hear in the stream, they got the number 8 pick in the draft coming up. And for me, the Falcons needs, first of all, let me get this out the way, make this thing clear. For the love of God, Atlanta, get me a pass rusher of any sort. I want to go ahead, for the ones of you that are not Falcon fans, let me make one thing noted out here. Since 2010, the Falcons have had 3 10-plus sack years. 2 of them was with John Abraham, and the other dude is playing for the XFL right now by the name of Vic Beasley. That was in the Super Bowl season. The Falcons finished 2nd worst in sacks this year, worst in sacks last year, 23rd in sacks in 2020, 29th in sacks in 2019, and 22nd in sacks in 2018. You're not winning no ball games like that when you can't get after the quarterback. And in those seasons, we've had a guy maybe crack 6 sacks. You're not winning a ball game without elite pass rush. And this is no jab at Lorenzo Carter. I like Lorenzo Carter. I like Arnold Ebiketie. I like those guys that have a potential future in Atlanta. But we need a guy that somebody has a double team. There is not a person on the team that you can say right now, I got to double team this guy when I come out there and line up against him on defense other than Grady Jarrett. He's a D tackle. By the way, Ryan Nielsen, do not make that man a DN in your system. I'm going to scream. Do not have that man lining up on the outside or Taquan Graham. They are defensive tackles. If you are over 270 plus pounds, you are a defensive tackle in my eyes. If you can barely run a 5 at the 40, you are a defensive tackle in my eyes. Do not have him rushing the passer. I'm going to leave that one alone. My second need for the Falcons is a corner. A.J. Terrell's one of the top tier corners in the league. You all know about him. He's a really solid guy. Oh, by the way, shout out to the Falcon fans who spazzed out 3 years ago when we drafted A.J. Terrell, talking about he got cooked by Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson in the NFL. How stupid do you sound right now? Those are two of the best wide receivers in the league that this man was having to face off against, and we was mad because we drafted him because of them two. I bet you're not having that conversation now. However, we seriously need to get a cornerback number 2. Casey Hayward's a veteran, but the issue with Casey Hayward is he's getting old. He's coming off of an injury. He didn't even play another snap after week 6 against the 49ers last season. And Isaiah Oliver went to the 49ers out there with Kyle Shanahan and company on that solid defense. He'll do well out there. But we need another corner in the worst way possible. That could potentially be maybe that could be pick number 8 for the Falcons, just to be honest with you guys, because right now the Falcons corners are Cornell Armstrong, who Jamar Chase went to school on like it was practice in Cincinnati back in week 7, and Darren Hall, who's going to miss a tackle every 4 plays and get burnt on every 3rd down. So unless you want to go into 2023 with that, don't go with them guys going forward. I'm sorry. We need a corner bad. I don't care if we take it at 8. I don't care if we take it in the 2nd round. You better get me a corner. Another need for the Falcons, wide receiver. Drake London, solid pick. I will apologize, Drake London. I went in on you last year on my draft show. I know I did. But he was a solid guy. He probably would have had a better year if he would have actually had a quarterback throwing him the ball and not a guy to go out here and run for 75 yards and throw 2 picks and throw for less than 150 yards. But he's gone to Philadelphia now. They ain't our problem no more. But wide receiver 1 is good. When Olamide Zaccheaus is your wide receiver 2, we have a problem. When Cordero Hodge is your wide receiver 3, we have a problem. When Brian Edwards, who can't catch a pass, is wide receiver 4, we have a problem. We need wide receivers in the worst way possible. I don't care what point in the draft that you get it, get me a wide receiver. By the way, the Falcons was the 2nd worst passing offense in the league last year. Not sure if y'all knew that, but of course, we ran the ball well, so that was kind of masked. But we couldn't move the ball. But then again, I'm sure teams love playing the Falcons last season. You knew once you took Drake London and Kyle Pitts out the game, there's somebody else who's going to get it open. Damiere Byrd, he popped in for every 3 games and made a big play, and it ain't throwing the ball no more. So we need a wide receiver bad. My next need is center and / left guard. Surprisingly, the Falcons had a top 5 offensive line last season, and that's pretty well because of the run block. We actually ran the ball very well last year. We were pretty. I think we were top 5, if I'm not mistaken. Mike can clear that up for me when he started talking about the Falcons. But I think we were top 5 in rushing last year. But Drew Dahlman is one of the worst centers in the league. You've heard me talk about other people's centers in the league. Drew Dahlman would make a botch snap maybe 4 times a game. There were several times, if you all remember the Saints loss, we had that botch snap with Marcus Mariota. They ended up causing us that game. He had a lot of botch snaps. And the left guard position, you can one or the other has to be addressed. Because, one, Michigan trash Jalen Mayfield better not be left guard that season. I know that much. He was a waste of a draft pick. You better get you a left guard or a center if you plan on being able to move the ball on the ground this season. And my last but not least need is this not even a need. This is a term. Speed. The Falcons need some type of change of pace back in all aspects. This is nothing against Tyler Algier is going to be running back 1, but Cordero Patterson is going to be a year older. He's probably going to be out the door after this season as a Falcon. You need a home run threat at wide receiver. We have a whole bunch of route runners and nobody that can really take the top off when you're throwing the ball. Drake London's he's your grit and grind wide receiver. But outside of that, Zacchaeus can't get open on a linebacker. What makes you think he'll get open on a corner? That man can't get, man, I can probably cover Zacchaeus right now. And I ain't played a down of football since I was in my teenage years. But anyways, we need somebody that can take the top off if you're the Falcons, whether it's a running back or whether it's a wide receiver. But those are my personal needs. But just to show you, give you guys a outlook of what the mocks said, Walter Football has the Falcons taking Peter Skoll out of Northwestern at number 8. I personally would not have a problem with this if they did go there because it's not the big need, but at the end of the day, this is a guy that can play all 5 positions. CBS Sports have the Falcons taking Christian Gonzalez. I would love to see him paired up with AJ Terrell if that move is to happen. Christian Prosso has the Falcons taking Nolan Smith at number 8, which I would absolutely be on board with if I was the Falcons, because that gives me an edge rusher. Josh Edwards has us taking Lucas Van Ness. He's a really solid DN edge guy out of Iowa. He'll be on the line. I'm sure we're going to play 4-3. Kyle Stackpole also has us taking Christian Gonzalez at number 8, which is a solid move. Again, I don't have an issue with it taking a corner. Pro Football Focus has the Falcons taking Joey Porter Jr. out of Penn State. I would have no problem with that either. And Yahoo has us taking Devon Witherspoon, who I think is one of the most underrated corners in the draft class. So I would love any of those corners to be a Falcon at this point. So again, let me hit some of these comments real quick before I pass it over. KD, what's up? KD said, "Oh, I'm a Daisy King. Better not touch the field this season." Hey man, I at least gave the man his correct name. Reggie, what's up, bro? What's going on, man? Jay Lee Jr. checking in, saying we need to trade back and get more picks. I wouldn't be opposed to this either. I really wouldn't be, because in my opinion, the Falcons could address a couple of these. They got some solid picks, but I mean, you have more back-end picks like 4th round and later than the high top 3 rounds. So I wouldn't be against that. I personally wouldn't be. And let's see the next comment. Shane, what's going on, Shane? He said, what do you think the Falcons going to say? I will let you know that when I post my mock in a bit. But for the meantime, I'm going to pass it over to Mike and see what his thoughts is about those 23 Falcons.
We're trending upward. I'll say that. I'm not sure how far we are to actually contending for a Super Bowl, but Nate has known me for over a decade. He knows that I'm a very pessimistic person when it comes to my sports teams, because I don't really think with my heart, I think with my head. And for me to say that we're headed in the right direction and we're very close to being contenders, not only in the NFC South, because we were there this year when people thought we would win 2 games, but we're close to being contenders in the NFC. And you can ask teams that we played over the years. We played in, I think, 10 one-possession games last year. We were in every game except for the Bengals game. Even at halftime, we had a huge deficit against them. We came back. I think we were down by 1 possession, and everything kind of started snowfalling because AJ Terrell was out that game, and like Nate said, Jamar Chase kind of went off. But we were in every game. We beat the 49ers by 2 touchdowns. So this team is very close. Don't let anybody fool you. This team is close. But to get into my outlook real quick, Nate mentioned it. Falcons were 31 out of 32 in passing yards last year. They averaged 158.8 yards per game. It's not going to get it done. It doesn't matter how dominant you are on defense or in your running game. If you are only, passing for less than 160 yards per game, at some point in the season, you're going to run into a situation when you have to throw the ball. And Marcus Mariota showed that, even with his second chance at quarterback last year, that he's not a starting quarterback in the NFL. There's nothing wrong with that. He's going to finish his career out likely as a backup. And as we've seen during free agency, backups make a nice living. So he's not hurting. I want to add that when Desmond Ridder made his 4 starts, the Falcons had an upward tick in passing. He passed for roughly around 180 yards per game. During that time, he was like 17th, and he helped. If he had been the Falcons starting quarterback based off his averages, not taking anything else, any factors into the equation, just based off his averages. The Falcons would have ended the season as a top 26-ish passing team. Still not great, but as a rookie coming in at the end of the season, he has first start at New Orleans where he passed for I want to say less than 100 yards to average out at 177 yards per game over the last 3 games. Hey, he did what he could, especially with the receiving corps and not having Kyle Pitts. So to nearly average 200 yards per game passing, hey, he did his job, and he put himself in a position to be the starting quarterback this year. Nate mentioned it. The Falcons rushed for 160 yards per game last year. They were slightly behind the Chicago Bears, who ran the ball more than anybody else in NFL last year. They were, like I said, they were tied for second. Moving on to special teams, the Falcons were 16th in kickoff return average last year. They were first in punt return average. So if you go back to when we had Devin Hester, for his last few years, we had a special teams threat. When you go back to Allen Rossum, way back, we had a special teams threat. Taylor Gabriel, when he was here a little bit, he added a special teams threat. We're good. We're set at special teams. If you think about Younghoe Koo, we brought back Bradley Pinion. Special teams should be overall in the top half of the NFL this year. So special teams, I think we're set. As far as turnovers last year, we were -4. We were ranked 24th out of 32 teams. Think about that. We won 7 games. We were in it till the last couple of weeks of the season. And we had a positive, even with the roster we had, and even with Marcus Mariota at quarterback, if we had a positive turnover ratio, who knows? That could have been a difference in 1 or 2 games and could have put us in the playoffs in a season where many predicted the Falcons to win less than 3 games. So I think turnovers will be a point of emphasis this year. On the defensive side of the ball, force some more turnovers, but definitely on the offensive side of the ball, limited turnovers, giving your offense a chance to have sustainable drives, which keeps your defense off the field. We had 10 interceptions offensively. Defensively. We had 10 takeaways. That was not really good. We were in the bottom half of the league. We were 23rd in forced fumbles, bottom half of the league. As far as giveaways, we didn't throw the ball much, which is why we were top 10 in interceptions. We only had 9 last year. Like I said, we didn't throw the ball much, so that's a little misleading. We were 27 fumbles. As I just mentioned, we have to limit those. I think that's going to be a point of emphasis. We had too many fumbles, too many crucial fumbles. The Taquan Graham fumble against the Chargers. Drake London had pivotal fumbles in late games. Marcus Mariota had 4 or 5 fumbles. Like when you don't have the dogs to run with certain teams, you have to do the little things. And little things, special teams, converting third downs, and limiting turnovers. And Falcons didn't do that last year. If you go back to one of our previous videos during the preview of the season, I said that the Falcons would have more than 17 sacks this year. I was committed to that. And we ended the season with 17 sacks. And that was that really hurt me to my soul because I felt like, another year in Dean Pease system, you added more talent in the draft last year. We just didn't get it done. We actually, the first couple of games, we were on pace to have 30, and the bottom just fell out, and we didn't get there. So that was very disappointing last year. It didn't help that we had a young secondary with some injuries. AJ Terrell missed a couple of games. Casey Hayward missed a lot of games due to injury. So, yeah, it was a very disappointing season on defense because we knew the offense would struggle this year with Marcus Mariota as a quarterback and drafting Desmond Ridder in the 3rd round, knowing that he would eventually get some starts at the end of the season. So we were hoping that the defense would kind of pick up the slack. It didn't happen, but it is what it is. Moving on, we made some changes on the coaching staff this year. Dean Pease is out. Ryan Nielsen is in, coming from the Saints. I'm very excited with his pedigree, his background, what the opposing scouts, coaches, and players have said about him. I'm very excited for the future. He's a future NFL head coach. So that's something that we have to take in consideration. I'm not sure how long he'll be here because he's one of the up and coming guys in this league, in the profession. He's very well thought of around the league. So I'm expecting big things. Even with the defense that we have, we're making changes in free agency in the draft. We'll talk about later on. But Ryan Nielsen is set up to have this defense have a monster year this year. We also brought in Jerry Gray. Jerry Gray is very, very well thought of around this league. He's been in the league. He's got over 40 years of coaching experience. He has ties with Arthur Smith back when he coached with Tennessee. Jerry Gray is mostly known for his role with the Green Bay Packers. He's the associate head coach, and he's got control of the defense along with Ryan Nielsen as kind of like a consultant role, but he's an associate head coach. He has multiple seasons of top two defenses in this league. That is hard to do. He has multiple, and I think he has 2 or 3 more seasons where he has top 10 defenses. So to add him to that defensive meeting room with Ryan Nielsen, our first time solely defensive coordinator, he shared the role in New Orleans. Man, I'm excited. I'm very excited. That's an understatement about this defense, what we can do, the moves we made in free agency in the draft. Moving on to the team needs. This is one of the reasons why we'll get into it later on, why I thought it was very smart for the Falcons to openly come out and say we're not in on Lamar Jackson. This team still has several needs. We've addressed a lot of needs, but we still have several more needs. Defensive back. We don't know what we're going to get out of Casey Hayward. You got Armstrong, Darren Hall. You have all these guys, unproven guys, some guys that, no disrespect, are probably practice squad guys on the majority of NFL teams, and they're getting a large portion of snaps last year. So that needs to be addressed in the draft. There's still some things we may be able to do in the free agency as far as that position, but I think that position will mainly be taken care of in the draft. Receiver, Nate mentioned it. I'm not going to talk about it much. It is what it is. We saw what happened with Kyle Pitts went down. Drake London, he's a solid player, but he needs that number 2 guy. Yes, you have Kyle Pitts, and theoretically, Drake London is the number 2 guy. Kyle Pitts is number 1, but you need that number 2 receiver. You need that receiver that can take the top off the field. And I want to say this: the Falcons are not the Chiefs. They're not the Bengals. That's not who Arthur Smith is. We're not going to have a Tyler Boyd, a Jamar Chase, and a T. Higgins and Hayden Hurst. We're not going to spread you out 5 wide. That's not who we are. We're not trying to be that. Arthur Smith knows what he is and who he is and what he has. And don't expect for us to go out and draft 2 receivers in the first 3 or 4 rounds. That's not who we are. That's not how we're building this team. We're going to add a speedster. We're going to add somebody to take the top off and give some attention away from London and Pitts, and also expect to have Cordero Patterson get more reps out at receiver now that Tyler Algier is taking control of that running back spot as well. Offensive line will be addressed at some point. Edge, we need the pass 17 sacks, self-explanatory. The edge will be addressed, and you will see in my mock draft. If I'm the GM, if Terry, if I know had me in the room, we're going to have over 30 sacks next year. You can book it with my mock draft. And the safety position out on the opposite side of Jesse Bates. Are we going to go with Richard Grant or Jalen Hawkins? Do we trust them to have that role by themselves? Opposite of Jesse Bates, that needs to be addressed. I'm not sure we'll draft a safety in the first couple of rounds or not, but hey, for me personally, I'm not a fan of what we have opposite of Jesse Bates. So, and we also lost Isaiah Oliver, who I thought could be that opposite guy. He's with the 49ers now, but that's my outlook on today's show on the Falcons, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Rivers.
All right. What a great summaries from both Nate and Mike. So I'm not a Falcons fan. So I'm coming in this very unbiased, but I will say first, y'all kicked the Browns' butt in week 4, man. Mariota was struggling.
No, we did not kick the Browns' butt.
No.
Hope Brissett was about to beat us.
What happened was y'all stopped throwing the ball Mariota and y'all put in Tyler Huntley. And I called that. I saw them running the ball 3 times, and I said, we in trouble. And they just kept running the ball, and ultimately y'all won the game and came back. So definitely think the offensive line is very, very strong. So I'm coming with some questions for the both of you. So I'm very, very excited. We're going to take this very, very slow. So the first question is, either one of you can interject. What positions do you think are the Falcons' strength at the moment right now? And we'll start with Nate.
Not too many. I'm gonna go ahead and put that out there. By the way, we don't have that many strength positions. We need a roster. But I would say, yikes, that ain't a good question. No, I'm joking. But if I had to say a strength right now, maybe the offensive line, because the offensive line had such a good year last year. I don't feel like the Falcons have much more strength right now. It's more so that offensive line, you down for once, you can say your offensive line is strong, because we know the Falcons strongly had offensive line issues through 90% of Matt Ryan's career. So you finally had that issue kind of behind you going into this year. And I feel like that could be a reason why that Peter Skull could end up as a Falcon at number 8, because that could complete your offensive line, and that gives you an opportunity to protect your second-year quarterback. But I feel like as far as the Falcons right now, maybe a second position, just depending on how the 4-3 scheme plays out, which I think we are going to go to. I would probably say edge would be a strength of position right now, because you have Lorenzo Carter and Arnold Ebiketie. You're probably going to add you a defensive end/edge in the draft. So I think those are the 2 strengths, but not too many strengths on this team. Not a lot of weaknesses. I'm going to let Mike, what do you think, man? What do you think?
As I mentioned earlier, not a position, but a side of the ball, part of the game. Special teams definitely will be the biggest strength for this team. But as far as position goes, I have to agree with Nate. The offensive line, you have the veteran Jake Matthews, Chris Lindstrom, one of the best offensive linemen in the game itself, and it showed by his payday. Falcons went ahead and paid him before he hit free agency, because they knew the price would probably go up. They brought back Caleb McGarry. He hasn't lived up to that first round draft pick yet, but he had a solid year. His numbers are a little bit they're not, numbers. I always say numbers never lie, but sometimes numbers do lie, and we all know that. If you look at his PFF grades, while the Falcons were a running team, he didn't have the best PFF numbers. They were kind of low. They were like in the 40 out of like 80 qualified participants. And he needs to get better as a pass blocker. But most definitely, the Falcons' identity is running the ball. So he needs to improve mightily. And I think that showed in the disparity of what Lindstrom was paid and McGarry was paid. I think that tells you all you need to know. There were some rumors that the Falcons will let McGarry go and bring back Matt Hennessy to take his spot. I don't think Matt Hennessy is a full-time starter for us. I think that needs to be addressed. And definitely not Drew Dahlman, which is why I was hoping that possibly Bradley Bozeman would not be re-signed by the Carolina Panthers. I mentioned that on our last show, but he is being retained by them. Congratulations to Bradley Bozeman. Him and his wife had a recent newborn as well, so that's huge for them. But I was kind of hoping we could get him, but it didn't happen. So Drew Dahlman, he can't be the starter on this team this year, from what I saw. Now, if he improves over training camp and whatnot, it is what it is. But right now, offensive line is definitely a strength. I would also say a sneaky position, running back. Tyler Algier, NFL All-Rookie team, 1,000-yard rusher, 4.9 yards per rush. He had 0 fumbles. Takes care of the ball, even though the last couple of games of the year he was averaging like 20 carries per game. So he was getting his touches and he was holding on to that ball too. He needs to get better in the passing game. I think that has been reserved for Cordero Patterson so far, but I think Tyler is a 3-down back. He got stronger as the season went on, as I mentioned, weeks 15 through 18, 4 games. He had 79 carries, nearly 500 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5.5 yards per carry, and a lot of they call them in fantasy football culture touchdown vultures. That was Cordero Patterson for Tyler Algier. Tyler Algier had like 6 or 7 touchdowns that were stolen by Cordero because, Tyler would do the heavy lifting, and then Cordero would come in like the vet. He's earned that right to come in the red zone. Cordero had 8 touchdowns, and a few of those probably should have went to Tyler. So his touchdowns didn't reflect how great he was in the red zone and all over the field. But let's see. Yeah, I think I really think that the running back position is that second strength of us. We also have Caleb Huntley. Caleb, as Armand mentioned, he had a great game against the Browns. He was a good change of pace back. There were times where the offense was stagnant in the second half, couldn't do anything. Arthur Smith was like, you know what? Put Caleb in. Caleb will automatically go for 10, 12 yards, soften up the defensive line, start punishing those linebackers on the second level. And then Tyler and Cordero would come in, and we were off the running. That's what we did against the 49ers. So, yeah, offensive line and running back, and then, of course, special teams will probably be my areas of strength for this team.
Okay, before we get to the next question, we'll hit some of these comments real quick. Well, boy, what's up, Ken? He said, we do the offense will struggle tough being the Falcons fan. You ain't lied. It's rough to go to the game and know that you're not sure if you're going to have a comfortable game. I think the only home game we went to this season that was comfortable was the 49er game, and that was a 14-point game itself. Let's see. Finley, what's up, man? He said, good show. Y'all keep it up. We appreciate that. Darius Adele said, you boys tough being foul. Listen, you don't know the half. You don't know the half. I'm telling you, if you follow my Facebook, I tell y'all every week, at some point, we're going to sue the Falcons for all the mental distress they give us. Because what we deal with on a week-to-week basis, you don't know if your team, you go up 10, that's not comfortable. The Falcons will be up by 14 with a minute left, and I still think the team going to score 15 and win at the end. Because the Falcons are just known for that. No lead is comfortable with the Atlanta Falcons. Maybe one of these days we can change that. Who knows? Let's see. Next comment says it's all about the Falcons. Unfortunately, it's only about the Falcons. Unfortunately, and I'm a season ticket holder to these guys. Next comment says got to be offensive line. I agree with what you said, what we said, Mike. He also said need another playmaker. Pence can't be the only one that can get open. London can't separate. I agree with that 100% too. Another person agreed with what you said, Mike, as far as the running back being the strength of position. Let's see. What's going on? Alan, he said, yeah, most definitely got to put him in when he up. Yep. And by we not being a pass team, we need to focus on more of our runs. We got kind of, to be honest, we got a little predictable at times last season running the ball. Like, if you're going to run the ball, you got to be able to mix that thing up. And there was a couple times when teams knew first down to 10, we're going to stack 9 in the box, get 1 yard. So a couple times, Marcus Mariota had to throw the ball on 3rd and 8. You don't know what he's going to do. Sometimes he run out the pocket and throw it in completion. He might try to do a juke move for a sack. Might even get you a pick here and there. So you just don't know what you're going to get out of him. Yeah. If by the way, if you wondering, yes, I did not like Marcus Mariota. Mike and Armand know that very, very well.
And when you mentioned predictability, and when it was predictable that we were going to do something, we didn't do it. Case in point, Commanders, 2 downs. Tyler Algier has been running over these boys. And these are big boys. Deron Payne just got a $100 million contract. Jonathan Allen, these not no scrubs with the Commanders defensive line. He was running over them boys. What we do on second down with 2 downs, like 27 seconds. They have 1 timeout left. All we gotta do is run the ball. We have 2 timeouts left, so we can take our time. We throw the ball with Marcus Mariota, game over, interception. That really ended the season. If we had won that game, we were first in the division. I don't even want to get started, but carry on.
And unfortunately, Mike was at the game the following week. He saw Marcus Mariota's last pass. By the way, the Pittsburgh game was one of the worst experiences as a Falcons fan ever, because I've never been to a home game where 80% of the stadium is for the other team. So you felt like you was at home on the road at home. And he threw an interception to end the game to Minka Fitzpatrick, and they got him up out of here, and he quit the team. Anyways, he's in Philadelphia, not our problem no more. Nick Green said, "Nah, Bozeman got to protect Big Stroud." You say so? You say it's going to be CJ Stroud as a Panther? Okay. All right. I agree with that. People said they need edge rushers bad. We definitely do need to add another edge rusher. I agree with that 100%. And Darius might be cutting one of your questions, Armand. What is your expectations for Ritter year 2?
Yeah, we gonna get there.
We're going to touch that question.
We gonna get there. Good question, Darius.
Darius said Falcons need to be at running back. Hey, come on out there and try out for us. Everybody run the ball in Atlanta. You know we're going to run the ball. Philly said to throw talking about Marcus Mariota. And you talk, he's talking about in the Madden League. He killing it with these lines. Listen, he's a great Madden player, terrible NFL player. But that's the next question you got for us, Armand.
All right. So we building into this. So my next question is, outlook. Looking at the current roster, what players do you consider as the foundational core building blocks of the Falcons right now?
I would say AJ Terrell, of course, Grady Jarrett. You now have a building block with Jesse Bates, I would say. You have Drake. You got on offense, I would say, is still Drake London, Tyler Algier. Kyle Pitts is possibly one for sure. So I say you got 6 building blocks on the team right now. And the rest of the positions, and I'm not taking anything away from the offensive line, because you do have Chris Lindstrom that's going to be here long term. Jake Matthews is going to be here a couple more years. Caleb's going to be here. I'm not going to talk about him right now, but just know I was not the happiest guy in the world when Caleb got re-signed. I was one of those guys that kind of wanted to let him go. But those are, to me, the guys that you're building around right now, and probably the next rookie that comes in at 8 will be your other building block. But I'm interested to see what Mike's going to say. Who's your building blocks?
Yeah, I mean, I think every Falcons fan will have the same few, because that's what it is, a few. But, of course, Jesse Bates, Grady, AJ Terrell. I believe Tyler Algier is a real deal. We know how the shelf life for running backs are, but for the time being, he is that guy. Kyle Pitts, London. I'm going to add Chris Lindstrom because we just paid him. And he's regarded as one of the best offensive linemen in the league. And I struggle trying to find another guy, but just to play, just to be different, I'm going to add Arnold Ebiketie, I believe that Nate has sold me on him over the year. I wasn't sure. I was more of a D'Angelo Malone guy, but Nate has persuaded me that this guy is the real deal. He can play. He can go with some of the best. And the Falcons haven't had any difficulty developing linebackers in the past. Foye just got a big payday from the Jaguars last year. And look, as soon as he made an impact on that team, he's one of the big reasons why they were in a position to make the playoffs last year like they did. But I believe he might be one of those next guys that can take that leap and, get a big payday later on down the road. Arnold Ebiketie.
Okay, before you hit the next question, let's hit some of these comments real quick. Nick said, I don't like that because also the Falcons, we don't have no receiver. Hey, we need another corner because we have to play some, and the whole division plays the NFC North this year. So we're going to be dealing with the Detroit Lion passing attack. The Vikings still got, no, I'm wrong. They got just Justin Jefferson. Thielen is somewhere. I don't know where he's going to be at yet. But we got some offenses that we're going to still play this year. So we need corners bad.
And the Bears got DJ Moore now.
Oh, God, yeah. And I don't need – and Falcons for the love of God, let me get this out of the way too. If it's a 6-point game, do not have a safety and a linebacker covering DJ Moore down the seams. We are fortunate we did not lose that game because of the kicker in Carolina. But this comments, what's up, Dejan? What's going on, bro? He checking in from Central State. Y'all going defensive back and linebacker. I can see that. Pink Pond Prince, what's going on, cousin? Hey, if you all are into fishing, make sure y'all follow her page. She has great content as far as fishing. I gotta go fish with her one of these days. Finley says, so if Lamar want to be a Falcon, but it costs y'all $2 first, is y'all taking it? Lord, why you put us on the spot like that right now?
That's a great question. I was initially going to think about asking that, but I'll let you. We can address that right now. If you guys want to just talk about that briefly,
I'll go ahead and do it because me and Nate have talked about this ad nauseum, and I've been very vocal about this. No, for one, you got to give up draft capital. 2, you got to pay them, and you still got to pay AJ Terrell and Kyle Pitts in London the year after that. So, no, absolutely not. The reason it is not because I don't think Lamar would. Man, the city, that'd be a hot ticket. I'm trying to tell you, that would be a hot ticket. But no, absolutely not. Because for one, you're losing draft capital, like I mentioned. But think about it. You need as many draft picks as you can get to fill this team up. This team, they won 7 games. They were contention to make the playoffs later in the year. But this team, this roster, it was not good. It's getting better, but it was not good. Like, we have guys that were practice squad players getting over 60% of snaps because of injuries last year. So it would just be a bad idea because think about, we're going to get into it later on, but some of the guys that we were able to get in free agency, we spent a lot of money in free agency, but I looked at the cap website, we still have $30 million in cap. And we've been spending money. We spent more money than like 80% of the teams in the NFL. We still have $30 million in cap. Some teams they don't have cap. They're over the cap. So the fact that if we would have gotten or went for Lamar Jackson, we would have lost the first round pick this year, next year, most likely. We may have still been able to afford Jesse Bates, but we would not have been able to address the defensive line and some of the other positions that we need. And then you would not have been able to draft maybe your next stud defensive player in the first round this year or possibly next year. Or if next year, if Ritter doesn't work out, well, Lamar Jackson is here, so we won't have to worry about quarterback. But, yeah, we still wouldn't have been able to add pieces. You know, maybe free agents would have been like, hey, I want to go play with Lamar Jackson. Like last year with Deshaun Watson, when they were thinking that he was coming to Atlanta, you had players like Jarvis Landry, Odell, and some other players that had linked up was like, oh, we're going to Atlanta. And then that all changed, you know, at the last minute when he chose the Browns. But, yeah, I don't want that. I don't want a Jarvis Landry and all these older players that want to come play with Lamar Jackson. I want to build this team correctly because we've been building this team so poorly the last several years. I think we have 7 losing seasons in the last 10 years. Like, what we've been doing is not the correct way. So I think Lamar Jackson was a pipeline dream. I never liked the idea. You know, in theory, it would have been an amazing move, but I think you just have to give up too much as far as spending for him as well as the draft capital portion. But I love Lamar as a player. I wish he was my franchise. I wish we would have drafted him, but we didn't. So I think it's a little bit too late now.
Me and Mike have definitely talked about this, and I feel like I'm battling this answer because just like Mike said, as y'all see the background on here, y'all on the screen that y'all watching. Y'all see that stadium back there, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. There wouldn't be an empty seat in that stadium if Lamar Jackson's quarterback, because for the folks that are not from Atlanta, this is no jab at this. I'm not making this a color thing, nothing like that. Let me make sure I make that clear before I even state this statement. But when Michael Vick was quarterback, that stadium was filled to the brim every single week, win, lose, or draw. It's something about having a black elite quarterback in Atlanta that's just a draw to the fans in the city of Atlanta. So those 6 years of the Michael Vick experience, that stadium was full from the top to the bottom. So there are still fans in this city in 2023, 16 years after Michael Vick was quarterback, that still wants a Michael Vick type quarterback in Atlanta. And if he was to be here, I promise you the season tickets will sell out. But roster-wise, I also agree with what Mike just stated, is it was too soon. If Lamar is available next year and Desmond Ridder does not pan out in Atlanta, send them 2 first-round picks. I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's a season too early, if that makes sense. I think it's a season too early because, as we said, we did not have a lot of depth on the roster. Giving up those 2 first-round picks would have been rough for us right now. However, I wouldn't been opposed to Lamar Jackson. To be honest with you guys, the Falcons have still around $34 million of cap space. If the Falcons would have decided to visit this conversation even now, I don't think it's a bad conversation now. For the most part, we want to see what free agency would have been first. They got a chance to make some good moves. You can possibly entertain that if it comes back up. But I think that the Falcons are going to go the approach of, let's build this roster. We drafted Desmond Ridder in the 3rd round. If he doesn't work out, then we might go ahead and say we're going for the big name quarterback, whether it's in the draft or potentially with Lamar, because I think the Lamar situation is far from over. I don't know how that's going to play out in Baltimore. It's going to be a mess. So that's a very good question that was brought up. And hit these comments before you go to the next question. What's up, Matt? What's up, bro? Jordan said, "Awesome show, fellas. We appreciate that, man. It means a lot." He said 49ers top 5. Listen, I'm sick of y'all. I wanted Hargrave. Y'all took Hargrave from us. We had more money than y'all. I don't know how y'all got Hargrave. But all I'm going to say is this about the 49ers. As long as Kyle Shanahan don't throw the game at the end, they should be fine. They should be fine. The 49ers probably had a shot to go to the Super Bowl this year, but they just did not show up, and Brock Purdy was not Purdying anymore in the NFC Championship game. Let's see. Matt also said Lamar going to Green Bay. That would be an interesting situation for Green Bay.
Hey, Nate. I ran across it on social media this week, but there's something in NFL rulebook where if they say if Lamar was to hold out to week 10, he could be like released or whatever. It's something he could become a free agent and no team would have to give up any draft capital. Now, I don't know if that's likely or not. I'm sure the Ravens would trade him before the trade deadline came, but that's something to also take into consideration. You know, if teams know that, they're like, well, the longer we wait, the more desperate we know that they are. So we have to give up less, because think about the Julio thing. We had leverage with Julio when, we were thinking about trading him, but then the whole Shannon Sharp thing happened on Undisputed, and people were like, y'all got to give us some we can get Julio for peanuts now, because we know that he out of there. He said it in his own words. So I think the longer this goes on, the better chance the Falcons have and other teams have to give up less than 2 first-round picks for him.
Hey, I can agree with that too, for sure. Buddy, what's going on, buddy? Said something, fellas. What's going on, bro? Off subject. Do you guys think that Ridder is the answer he has to earn from him? We're going to get into that. I'm sure Armand has a question about Ridder. We're gonna definitely tap into that Ridder conversation. That's definitely not being ignored. Okay, let's see a few more. Greedy Williams tweeted that he always wanted to be a Falcon, but I guess y'all passively signed with the Eagles. He could have been a big help. I would have loved for him to have been a Falcon, but I mean, hey, he's going to a great situation in Philadelphia. You can't ask for a better situation out there.
I'd like to kind of interject on this very, very briefly as a Browns fan. Good luck with Greedy Williams. that shoulder is a problem. He has some nerve damage, and I think he'd honestly be better off potentially moving possibly to playing free safety on certain downs. I don't think he really has the physicality to handle man-to-man coverage. I think he's been up and down He missed 2019. I think going to Philadelphia, I think he needed to change the scenery. And I think he needed some energy, being in a good locker room where there's Super Bowl aspirations as well as a good culture would be really good for him.
All right. Let's see. The next comment from my boy Ken said Lamar alleviates a lot of pressure in other areas. Defense don't have to be 85 Bears if you go get Lamar. That's why I say that it's still a slippery slope. I don't think that conversation is far from over. If you ask me as a fan, I still don't think that's conversation is over yet. We'll see. Had another person say I'm cool with Lamar. He bring free agencies with him. Imagine Lamar throwing a pitch, London speech. That would be lovely. And the last comment, Heineke will give Ritter a run for his money. Interested to see what the Falcons do with the large cap space. That's going to be an interesting conversation to talk about. But I'm going to let Armand get into the next question. We want to hold him up.
All right. So I'll consolidate this since this is around free agency. So the Falcons were real active in free agency. They resigned a couple key players like Lorenzo Carter and Tyler Vrabel, who's a backup offensive lineman. In terms of the acquisitions, they did trade for Jonnu Smith, who Nate had in his video from the team that he played for, the Tennessee Titans.
The
New England Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
New England Patriots. I'm sorry. That was the former. That's how him and Arthur Smith had the connection through Tennessee. They also signed Jesse Bates and another couple other free agents. So I wanted to ask you both, what was your favorite move in free agency by the Falcons?
Jesse Bates by far. I wanted Jesse Bates the whole way because the Falcons have nobody in that secondary at safety. Richie Grant and Jalen Hawkins are role players, not starters to me. That they may get better. We're having a Jesse Bates around them, but I think that's clearly my favorite guy. I feel like we actually have a Pro Bowl. We haven't had a elite safety, and I don't know when, because I did not consider William Moore and Thomas Akuda as elite safeties. To me, this is finally the first time we've had one in God knows when. It's probably a long time since I was a Falcon fan, because even if you go back to Laurie Malloy, he was in the latter part of his career. So to get somebody in their prime is awesome. And for me, my second favorite move was probably David Onyemata, because you finally give somebody that can stuff the run with Grady Jarrett. I know a lot of folks were like, we may have overpaid him because he's 30 years old, but at the end of the day, he had a 3-year deal. To me, if you decide to go get maybe a Jalen Carter in the draft at 8, you got a guy that can learn up under. You got a guy you're learning under. You're learning under a elite Grady Jarrett and a very solid David Onyemata. That's a very good situation for him. So to me, you're bringing him in my opinion, you're bringing him in for 2 years with the idea of we're going to get us a younger pass rusher to pair with Grady as he entered the latter stages of his career too. So to me, those are my 2 favorite moves. What about you, Mike?
I agree. I think every Falcons fan will agree that Jesse Bates was everybody's ecstatic to have him. You have an all-pro, Pro Bowl caliber guy in the secondary. To add to AJ Terrell, now you're just filling in pieces in that secondary. I think you have 2 guys that can go with anybody. And a lot of people are like, he's the 4th highest paid safety of all time now. And people are like, well, that was an overpay. Well, when you think about the contract, it's front loaded. He's making $59 million in the first 2 years, and he's still 26. So I think he's making like 20 something this year, and then like a huge amount next year to get to that 59 million. So essentially, the Falcons are doing things very smart. The Saints, before they started doing all these restructuring of contracts over the last 4 or 5 years, they were very wise with money. With Mickey Loomis and Terry Fontenot. As you can see, they've started kind of straying away now that Terry Fontenot is away, and they've done a lot of more riskier moves, short-term moves that can hamper and hurt their future on the back end because of the restructured money. But this can essentially be a 2-year contract. It's front-loaded. 59 of the total 64 million, that's 2 years. So this is essentially, I look at it as a 2-year contract. And then, he can, I'm probably sure he'll be like, well, I want more money. I want more guaranteed money for this 3rd year. and the Falcons will do whatever they have to do depending on how he plays. But also the David Onyemata, Saints fans, I'm in Saints country. They call him PED Onyemata because he was suspended a couple of years ago, and that's when he had his big year. But I find that really funny because when he was playing well, or over the last few recent years, I didn't hear that nickname PED Onyemata. So I think it's a little sour grapes that he's with a rival now. And I've seen interviews with him. He's ecstatic to play with Grady Jarrett. I think Grady Jarrett is ecstatic to play with him. Onyemata has the ability to get to the quarterback. He's had seasons where he's had 8 sacks. You got that with Grady Jarrett, man. That 1-2 punch. We've been shouting from the rooftop to get Grady some help. Finally got Grady some help, and it might not have been Javon Hargrave that we all wanted, but I'm not upset about this pick at all. But my favorite pick, and it's an under radar pick, is another former Saint, Caden Ellis. He was very unknown last year. And the Saints, if you think about the Saints the last 4 or 5 years, or even going back, the Saints are really good at discovering players and putting them in positions to thrive that the average person doesn't know about. Caden Ellis, in a limited role last year, had 7.5 sacks. I think he's going to be our weak side linebacker this year. Nielsen got a lot of productivity out of him and other linebackers. Think about Demario Davis. Now, he got there a little bit before Nielsen did, but he has only he's elevated his play as he gotten older. I've been waiting for him to fall off. He's like 32, 33, and he's continued to play at an elite level. I'm not saying Caden Ellis is going to be that type of player, but I like Caden Ellis. Obviously, he had 7.5 sacks as an individual. We had 17 as a team. So I'm just saying. So I'm excited about that. So yeah, those are my 3 guys I'm excited about so far.
All right, what's what you got for us next?
All right. So we're going into the questions that have kind of been already answered, but we're going to focus specifically on the quarterback position for the Falcons. So you signed Taylor Heineke. We already discussed the Lamar Jackson situation. And I like to talk about Desmond Ridder here. So obviously there's going to be a QB battle going into training camp. I just want to my first question is just to get your thoughts on the Heineke signing. And then obviously one of the comments was, what do you expect from Ridder in year 2? So what is your outlook on the current quarterbacks on your roster going into the 2023 season?
I guess I would say I don't know. I think that Ridder has potential. I think Ridder has the potential to be a decent quarterback. I don't know didn't see a lot of him. But the thing that made Falcon fans want to give him a shot sooner was because although it was a preseason limited amount of snaps, he looked more comfortable in Arthur Smith's offense than Marcus Mariota did, which is why fans was screaming for him to get a chance midway through last season, although we decided to let a quarterback go ahead and throw butt interceptions, but we're going to leave that for another show. But I would say that it is an open quarterback battle. Taylor Heineke definitely is worthy of being a starter in Atlanta. He's from Atlanta. I'm going to throw that out there too. He's not a franchise guy, but if you're talking about a guy that's a game manager that can win you a ball game, that's the kind of guy that can win you a ball game if Desmond Ridder doesn't work out. But I do think that Arthur Smith's intentions is to come in, giving Desmond Ridder an opportunity to possibly start. My hopes is that he has a solid year, maybe a 20 touchdown, less than 10 picks. I want him to have a efficient season. I don't expect too much out of him too soon because this is his first full season as a starter. But to me, the Falcons need to hit in this position because from a person that, and I know Mike's going to probably tap into this further when he gets on his opinion in, I want to see a rookie quarterback, not a rookie quarterback, a quarterback on a rookie contract thrive. Because to me, you can go address other major needs. When you look at certain teams in the Super Bowl recently, the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow we knew Joe Burrow was going to be a solid guy from the start. But, they have they were able to address other major needs because this was a guy that came out of college balling. The Chiefs had the benefit of Patrick Mahomes in that situation. The Bills had Josh Allen in that situation. Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia. He was a second-round pick and had an MVP-like year, and the Eagles went on to the Super Bowl. So, to me, if you're the Falcons, you want to see your young guy come out and shock the league, and you possibly can make a run at not only the division, but the NFC at some point. But honestly, before we get there, I just want to see how comfortable he will be with Drake London, with Kyle Pitts, with better talent, because clearly what the Falcons have shown is we are going to get some talent around you. I feel like Desmond Ridder has one season to prove himself. I don't know if you guys are viewing it that way, but I feel like he is getting viewed from a one-season perspective, because if the Falcons don't see the potential in him, they could possibly go get a quarterback in 24 or look at it like a Lamar or somebody like that down the road, or whoever could be open. Because to me, look at the state of your division. The Saints are putting a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound that should have been ripped off a long time ago, and they need to blow that team up. That's what the Saints situation is right now. Tampa is going to try to roll with Baker Mayfield when they still, to me, have the most talent in the NFC South on a roster. Carolina clearly showed that they're going to go get one of the top quarterbacks. Smart move from there, but their roster isn't there right now. So you're in a situation where you're trying to build a roster to compete in the division, but you're like, okay, Desmond, you had 4 games last season. All of these guys, with the exception of Derek Carr, Baker Mayfield's get into another situation where you got to get some chemistry. You had a little bit of a chemistry chance with Drake and Algier. So to me, I think they're going to give him a chance similar to how they gave Marcus Mariota a shot last season. But if it gets to a point where the Falcons are in the division race and he's hurting us from winning ball games, you may see Taylor Heineke. I don't think he's going to get pulled like Mike mentioned it earlier last season with Marcus Mariota. I don't think this is going to be a 4 to 6 week analysis. I think they'll give him at least 10 to 12 weeks to show if he's a franchise quarterback. If he doesn't work out, then they're going to go to Taylor Heineke and get another quarterback. But that's my take on Desmond Ridder. But I'm rooting for Desmond. I really would love to see him ball out this year.
Yeah, I'm a big Desmond Ridder fan. I wasn't when we drafted him, but just watching him, he's won me over. I don't know if he's the franchise guy. It's hard to tell when it's a 4-game sample size and when you drafted him. But he definitely deserved the opportunity. I was there to watch his first career start, and it was a mixed bag. Why do I say that? He passed for 97 yards. We ran the ball. I think we ran for the ball for like 160 yards. Most of that was Tyler Algier. But the thing is, Desmond has 4 starts under his belt. He has 9 career sacks. Falcons didn't protect him when he was in there. He had 4 sacks against the Saints. Like, he got sacked 4 times. Like, he was constantly under pressure. Guys were not getting open. Yes, he made mistakes and made throws. It was his first career start against the Saints in New Orleans in a big-time rivalry game. So nobody expected him to be perfect. If you did, then that's on you. But from what I saw, being there, the moment wasn't too big for him. The moment, like, he didn't make those rookie mistakes that you typically see in a first career game. It was more so a lack of – it was poor coaching. That's one of the games where I thought that they didn't put him in a good position. They came out throwing the ball. And I know you want to get him some throws, but they came out throwing the ball 20-plus yards. And I'm sitting there like, what are we doing? And, of course, he didn't complete them. For one, we didn't have the receivers to do that. Like, you had – I'm not sure if I can't remember if Marshawn Lattimore was back then. I don't think he was. But regardless, he was being shadowed by Tyrann Mathieu. But he had cornerback help. The cornerback had Tyrann Mathieu free safety help. He was getting shadowed because they knew that was the Falcons' only weapon. Kyle Pitts was out. So, like, what are we doing? I didn't agree with that game plan at all. I agree with getting your quarterback some short throws in to get his confidence up, build him up, and then proceed to go downfield. But we didn't do that. We went backwards. So the game plan kind of put him in a bad position. He might have been lacking. He might have lost some confidence early because he wasn't completing throws because he was throwing 20 yards down the field. The running game didn't get started until the back end of the game when we started making a comeback. And the defense came out the gate allowing Andy Dalton to torch them. I think he started the game off like 8 for 8 with a touchdown. And I'm like, the defense had been playing well, relatively speaking. But out the gate, he was down on the scoreboard. Coach had him throwing the ball. He had to deal with some circumstances. I'll say that. But the one thing I will say, the Falcons were in a position to win that game late. He was leading them on a game-winning drive with less than 2 minutes left when Drake London had a first down and he got the ball poked out, fumble, ball game. So that should tell you a lot. He had a game-winning drive against the Saints defense, who was still a prolific defense last year, still top 10. He was moving that ball down the field for a game-winning touchdown as a rookie in his first career start in the Superdome. That should tell you all you need to know. He did have another game-winning drive late in the season against the Cardinals. Didn't really play well against the Baltimore Ravens, but the Ravens defense was no joke. They were playing in some pretty bad weather as well. It was cold, very cold that game. I think it was like 20-something degrees or
Don't
something
forget
like that.
the officials was officialing out there too.
Yeah,
He had 2 touchdowns taken back from us.
Yeah, you're correct about that. But the one thing about Desmond Ridder, he got better as the season went on. Look at this. The first game, like I said, threw for 97 yards, 50% completion rating. Most of that was because of the game plan. But the next week, 66%, 73% against the Cardinals. I know it's the Cardinals, but still, that's his third career start. 63% against the Bucks, and he actually played better against their starters than he did against their reserves when they took everybody out at halftime. But his quarterback rating continued to go up. He went from 59 to 85 to 90 to 102. So from what I saw, he continued to get better as he got more confidence, more experience, and he took care of the ball as far as throwing the ball. He needs to get better taking care of the ball in the pocket. He got stripped a couple of times. He had four fumbles. No, 3 lost fumbles. I'm sorry. But he got sacked 9 times, I think you can go back to Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan lost a lot of fumbles when he was with the Falcons the last few years. He was getting hit all the time, So offensive line we have a running power offensive line. They need to get better at the tackle areas of protecting the quarterback, especially his blind side. But I'm a true Desmond Ridder fan. I'm rooting for him. I think that he has the intangibles. He has everything he needs to be successful. It's good to have, I would say, a top 10 backup quarterback in Taylor Heinicke. He's played in the playoffs. That experience can help the maturation of Desmond. But if the worst case scenario, injury happens or he struggles, you have somebody on the back end that can come in and win you games, and you don't have to worry about, hey, we built this team with the free agents in the draft. We don't have to worry about, hey, if a quarterback is struggling, there's going to be competition all year. I do believe, like Nate said, he's not going to have to look over his shoulder like Marcus had to do later in the season. That spot is Desmond Ridder's. But if something unfortunate happens, then you have Taylor Heinicke that can go in and help you compete. And I think the Falcons are going to be in the position to win the division this year, or at least compete in the division or a wild card spot. So, hey, I think quarterback really potentially could be a strength for this team when you think about all the holes we have on this team.
Okay, I like that comment that you made. Let's see. Tevin said, love you. So take on the Lamar situation. Nate, definitely the open quarterback battle. If it don't work out, go get Lamar. Yeah, that's definitely where I stand on that situation. And he also said D-Hop still out there. Go get him. Draft Nolan Smith and some corners. Ridder's your guys are surrounded with some talent. Yeah, you're basically on the same page as me in regards to that situation of putting some talent around him and seeing what happens with that situation. But yeah, Armand, what is our next question that you have for us?
All right. So we're gonna transition to the draft. Obviously, the draft is looks like about a little over a month away. So the Falcons currently have 9 picks in the draft, and I think we've already covered the positions of need relative already after free agency. So we're gonna talk about pick 8. We're gonna talk about pick 8. So let's say that the Falcons stay at number 8. What players do you think will be in serious consideration for that pick? And let's also go with who you would take at that pick as of right now.
Okay, so
Who wants to go
basically you giving us a 2-for-1 on this thing. So the 3 players I think would be in play for that pick number 8, staying at number 8, would be Christian Gonzalez if he's there. Jalen Carter, because I think Jalen Carter is going to slip to that position. I think he's going to be a top 10 pick, but I don't think I think he could slip to us. And Nolan Smith, who is rising up the draft board too, could be the 3 guys in that spot. Maybe a 4th as a Lucas Van Ness as that spot. So them are the 4 I think is probably within the range, and maybe a 5th in Peter Sko. I've been seeing a lot of people mock him to us, but as far as my personal thoughts, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen of my mock, and I know Mike's going to do his next. Now, for my personal Falcons mock, this is what I picked. So I have the Falcons at number 8 taking Jalen Carter out of UGA. I think he would match up very well in our defensive line with learning under Grady Jarrett and David Onyemata. The second round pick I have was taking Josh Downs, who, if you watch North Carolina, he was pretty solid for North Carolina this year. And that's addressing the wide receiver need that we have in Atlanta. Third round, Armand knows this guy very, very well, and he would absolutely fit as a Falcon. Luke Weipler, the center out of Ohio State, I think he would fit Arthur Smith's scheme to a T. We would love to have Luke Weipler. Oh, Lord, I got the podcast on. But I think Luke Weipler would be a great fit for the Falcons' run blocking scheme, and he would be the center that we need long term. 4th round, I have us taking TCU's corner Travius Hodge-Tomlinson. I think he's a solid cover corner that we could really use in the Falcons secondary. Now, 4th round, also in the 4th round, I was taking Deuce Vaughn. He's a change of pace back, and he'd be the perfect change of pace back for Algier Huntley and Cordero Patterson. 5th round, this may shock a lot of people, but if you watch HBCU football, you know this guy very well. Aubrey Miller Jr., the linebacker out of Jackson State, he is all over the field. I think he's going to be the sleeper in the draft. He's going to go to the right situation and really ball out. Also, round 7, I have us taking Christian Young out of Arizona. That's another safety to go up and learn on the opposite side of Jesse Bates. My other pick at 226 is Darius Davis, the speedster out of TCU. He's their take the top off wide receiver that you can add out there with Desmond Ridder. And the last pick I have, Rajon Wright. He's a corner out of Oregon State. So as you see, I'm kind of hitting the main needs of getting some help in the secondary and at wide receiver. So those are I named off my personal 8 in the mock for the Falcons. I want to see what Armand has to say before we go to Mike. How you feeling about that mock?
All right. So I think it's a good draft. There is one very, very glaring omission that I saw. I did not see any defensive ends that were selected in your draft. Was there a possible reason for that, being that your team had 17 sacks last year?
I feel like the Falcons, but it depends on how I think if Jalen Carter isn't at 8, they're probably going to go get an edge. But the ultimate reason I went there is you just re-signed Lorenzo Carter for I believe it was a 2-year deal, if I'm not mistaken, Mike. And Arnold Ebiketie had a pretty good year to me, this is the tricky situation with the Falcons. The Falcons players fit a 4-3 defense last year, but we ran a scheme that Dean P's scheme is from the 50s. And we had guys who fit a 4-3 defense, but it didn't fit the scheme last season. So it could be a possibility that the Falcons may go get a Jalen Carter that could be he's going to rip up that middle with Grady Jarrett. You can have a rotation of him, Grady, and Ayamada. And I also felt like the way that the draft was falling to me, that you got a chance to go the cheaper option of getting some solid receivers in the draft and get some corners in the draft as well, because I feel like they're going to fill out possibly an edge in free agency at some point, maybe. And I also think there's another reason was the Caden Ellis move. That could also be a reason that make me feel like maybe they're going to let some edge guys that are on the roster already go out there and cut loose at the quarterback. But that was my reason for not having an edge at that spot. So, yeah, that's where I was going with that one.
Okay. No, that's very, very understandable. And if you had personnel that more suited a 4-3 defense instead of a hybrid 3-4 defense, it'll let your defensive ends, pin their ears back and just, straight focus on rushing the passer or stopping the run. So I totally understand that. Really, really like the Luke Weipler pick. He was a surprise to declare for the draft, actually. But from Ohio State's track record history in regards to centers, they have done relatively well in the NFL. So if you do get that, I think you'll be a very, very happy Falcons fan. So, all right, Mike, you up.
Yes, sir. I enjoy every pick that Nate did. If that happened to happen, I wouldn't be upset at all. To answer Amar's first initial question, I've seen a lot of mock drafts with Jalen Carter sliding. The only issue that the hiccup, or rather the Lions, I don't know what the Lions are going to do. Do they go corner? Do they go defensive line to get, depending on what happens with Tyree Wilson, if he goes to the Seahawks? I think the Lions might take the best player available because they need defensive help regardless. So it just depends on how far Jalen Carter falls. I like Peter Sko as well. You can never go wrong. You can never have too many elite level potential offensive linemen. And that fills a need because the Falcons still do need offensive linemen. I don't think I have an offensive lineman in my draft, but this is very fluid. My mock draft has changed since the first time we did an episode to the second. I don't know. I want Jalen Carter, but I wouldn't be upset with Peter Sko or Christian Gonzalez to give a solid corner on the opposite side of AJ Terrell with Jesse Bates in the bag. That would be kind of nice too. But honestly, I think the Falcons might trade back. And I normally don't like doing this, don't like doing these predictions. But I think if Jalen Carter is not available, you have your options again. Peter Sko, I don't think Christian Gonzalez is going to be there. He potentially might not be there. But if you have the option between Peter Sko or trading back and getting more draft capital, I think you draft back because, as you will see, let's see. If I can pull it up for you guys. All right. So I have us. Can y'all see it, guys?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay. I have the Falcons trading the 8th pick back to the Texans and gaining the 12th, the 33rd in the second round, and the 6th round pick. The 6th round pick was originally the Falcons by way of the Saints. Texans had that pick. So we get that pick back. I have us. I know we got David Onyemata, but I have us taking Kalijah Kancey, and here's why. He is a bull out of Pittsburgh. He is a pro comp to Aaron Donald. He is an elite pass rusher. He has hand-to-hand combat skills that rival, that are unprecedented at the college level. He is an elite hand-to-hand combat player. He's not a projected top 10 pick. He's a lot of people have not even heard of his name because he's in the back end of the first round, early second round. But I think you should draft him, and here's why. Grady Jarrett was 6 feet, 304 pounds when he was drafted out of Clemson, and they said what? They said that he was undersized, and now he's developed to one. He's on a path to becoming a possible Hall of Famer. He has been that good over his years as an undersized defensive lineman out of Clemson. How big is Kalijah Kancey out of Pittsburgh? Well, he's 6'1", 281 pounds. Similar frames, a little bit taller, a little bit lighter, but getting in the weight room over the offseason, I bet he can get to in the 290s. And having him as a rotational piece early on with David Onyemata to give them some you won't have any drop-off. If Grady has to come out, you won't have any drop-off. This guy is one of those guys that you need. He's a freak in the most respectful way possible. He ran a 4.67 40 at 280 pounds. He had 14 and a half sacks over his last 2 years at Pittsburgh, and over 30 tackles for loss. Like, this guy is basically Grady Jarrett. Like, who would not want a potential Grady Jarrett clone? Like, come on. I think that's my pick. You know, I really hope this guy lands with the Falcons because I feel like wherever he goes, he's going to be a star. In the second round, I don't think Nolan Smith is going to fall this far, but I did several PFL mock drafts, and he was there. He was still there in the second round. Just like in the professional mock drafts that you see from Mel Kiper and all these other guys, you see Jalen Carter sliding. Jalen Carter was not available at number 8, which is why I traded back. So we know what Nolan Smith is. If we can get Nolan Smith in the second round right here, like, that's like Christmas. You get your first round pick, and then you get another first round type player in the second round at number 33. With my third pick, I told y'all we are not going to be 17th. We're not going to have 17 sacks next year. We're not going to be in the bottom of sacks. We're getting B.J. Ojulari. He's from Marietta, Georgia. He's a Georgia boy. He had the fourth best NFL combine score last year out of everybody. This year out of everybody. He had the 4th best combine score out of everybody. He has similar athletic characteristics as Nolan Smith. He's not as polished as Nolan Smith, but one of his weaknesses is he doesn't show much effort in the run game. And that's totally fine with me because if you don't, you're not going to play. Atlanta has players. Nate mentioned Arnold Ebiketie, D'Angelo Malone. We have guys that if you're not going to put the effort forward, then it doesn't matter how much talent you have. You're going to be behind them. You're going to be 3rd, 4th string. But if he does work on his weaknesses, such as effort in the run game, trying to be a better block shedder, then this guy is a starter. He is a starter. He is a 5, 6, 7, 8 year starter in the NFL. And if we can get him in the second round as well, to pair with Kancey and Nolan Smith, man, the Falcons' defense is on an upward tick. Now, I got us taking Eli Ricks with the third round pick, 75th overall. That might have been a reach. He might be available in the 4th round, maybe 5th round. As you know, he didn't play as much last year as expected because Alabama had other corners that were doing better, and he was struggling, learning the concepts. Nick Saban is a defensive back coach. He's a defensive back by nature. That's the position he played. So, no disrespect to LSU. They believe that they're LSU, that DBU. Statistics show that Alabama is DBU Alabama and Ohio State are DBU over the last 10 years. Hey, I said numbers don't lie. And the numbers suggest as far as all pros, Pro Bowls, salaries, Alabama and Ohio State players get paid substantially more than LSU's. I'm just saying. I'm not throwing any shade, but there's a reason why he was a starter for LSU and he couldn't crack the starting lineup for Alabama in a somewhat down year for Alabama, defensively especially. That's the reason he couldn't crack the starting lineup to the last few games. He had to learn the terminology. He had to learn the concept of Alabama plays bump and run. So you have more. You don't get the get the ability to play zone coverage as much because it doesn't matter. As you saw against Tennessee, we were playing man coverage, we were getting picked apart, but stubborn old Nick and Pete Goldman, who is now at Ole Miss, was like, we're not changing who we are. We just gonna have to make some adjustments, but we're not going to the zone. We're gonna play man, and Jalen Hyatt set some records on us. But that's why I think that Eli Ricks should be. We should take a look at him. He was getting top 10 picks before he transferred to Alabama because based off of his freshman year at LSU, they were saying that just like Derek Stingley, he was a generational type player. He has the length. He's 6'1", 6'2"-ish, but he has the length to cover guys that are 6'5", 6'6". He also has the speed to keep up with them. He has the flexibility in his hips to backpedal and make sharp movements. So the talent is there. I guess it's one of those things where are you going to put in the work to get better to shore up your weaknesses? At number 4, I have us taking Tyler Scott. We need a guy that can take the top off the cover to take some attention off of Kyle Pitts.
I like that
Tyler
pick.
Scott. Yes, yeah, I like Tyler Scott. Nate put me on to him a couple of weeks ago. I've been doing some research on him, and I like his style. He's not a big guy, but for what we need him for, he doesn't have to be. We have those guys already. He's a 4.4 guy. He's a junior Olympic sprinter, so he has that top end speed. As I said, they said many people are giving him a Ty Hilton comp, which it raises some eyebrows. I mean, I can see it when he's at his best. Out of his 14 touchdowns, 10 of his touchdowns came at 25 yards or more down the field. So he's a stretch the guy type of field, which is what we need. And so we can get him in the 4th round. I will be ecstatic. He needs to improve his route running because he gives away when he's running his deep routes. And this isn't Cincinnati anymore. So the level of competition going from Cincinnati to the NFL is a lot. Guys are their livelihoods, feeding their families on the line. So they're not going to get embarrassed by you blowing by them. So you have to, work on your route combos, which I think he will. I know he will because I think he's going to be a solid player. Just like Nate in the 4th round, I have Tre'Vius Hodges Tomlinson. This is the nephew of the great running back L.T. LaDainian Tomlinson of the San Diego Chargers, formerly San Diego Chargers. He's a 3-time first-team All-Big 12, first-team All-America, and he's the Jim Thorpe Award winner. He's a physical, solid tackler. He can press well. He has fluid hips and man coverage, and he has scrappy and run support. What does that remind you of? It reminds you of some of the corners that come from the New Orleans Saints and under Ryan Nielsen. Those guys are scrappy. They'll be in your face. They'll talk junk to you. They're going to let you know when they make a play, and they're going to let you know the entire game. They're not afraid to press. The only weaknesses that he may have, he's a little bit undersized, so he struggles against large, taller corners. But I love this pick in the 4th round. PFF does as well. I think you got to bring some of that New Orleans swagger to Atlanta because that's something that we've missed, for a while. You need somebody that's going to get in an opposing player's face and let him know that, hey, I'm talking to you, but I'm also going to back it up. And that's what New Orleans Saints defensive backs have done for the last 6-7 years. They continue that with Marshawn Lattimore. They had Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Now he's with the Eagles. Now he's, that whole situation. But they have dogs at the secondary positions, and that's what we need in Atlanta. We need dogs. So as you can see, we got Javarius Owens. He's a safety out of Houston. He had the 8th best combine as far as athleticism a couple of weeks ago. He's 6 feet, 195. I think the Falcons need some safety help. He can play in the box or he can play in free safety. So I think that versatility gives Atlanta some things to do. I might have reached for him because I knew that we needed a safety to address the opposite of Jesse Bates because I don't believe in the safeties we have now with Jalen Hawkins and Richard Grant. So I picked him in the 5th round because of his versatility to be able to play in the box or at the free spot. He's a hard hitter. He has a defensive background, which means he can play in the nickel. So if you need an extra corner out there, he can play in the nickel, and he's comfortable out there. So that's why I have him out there. Like I said, he has some open field tackle issues. In the NFL, if you can't tackle, you're not going to play. I think with Nielsen and Jerry Gray, they can turn this guy into they can turn him into the guy like Seattle has. Ryan, I forgot their safety's name, but he's a 4th round guy. He's in his 3rd year. I mentioned him last week on the show. He's turned into a guy that makes Jamal Adams kind of expendable now because he played so well when Jamal Adams was out with injury this year. And he stepped into that role, and now you have to have him on the field at all times. I think Javarius Owens can be that type of player. I don't like my running back pick. PFF does. After watching further film of Eric Gray, I don't think he's a fit for the Falcons, but I think the Falcons will draft a running back at some point. Moving on, Stetson Bennett. Why not?
I want to hear you talk about this Stetson Bennett pick.
Stetson, he's a winner. It is what it is. You could talk about how he plays or whatnot. Is he a game manager? Georgia put the ball in his hands this year. He went out and won games. That it is what it is. I think that he's a winner, and you can't put a price tag on somebody that knows how to win. Will he be competing for the starting job this year? No, but I think he's a guy that he's going to get drafted by someone, and he's going to impress someone.
I know you.
He's going to get an opportunity. He's going to get an opportunity to compete for that second job somewhere. And I guarantee you, when he does, he's going to make the most of it. Stetson is the type of guy that he rises to the occasion. People didn't like that he got invited to New York for the Heisman, but as an Alabama fan, I have nothing but the utmost respect for Stequavius, as y'all say. He has some swagger. His teammates love him. They play hard for him. And again, you can't put a price tag on somebody that knows how to win and galvanizes a locker room. And that's what he did at Georgia. Stetson Bennett is a one-of-a-kind quarterback. So take that as you want it. Also,
did you see the comment before you said Carlton Marshall? Did you see the comment from Nick saying Stetson Brown won?
No, I can't. I can't see the comments. Right? I'm looking at the mock draft. I'll have to look at that in a minute. But
listen, let me hit this real quick before you go. If Stetson Bennett comes to us round 1, then y'all taking Anthony Richardson in. Like Mike said last week, and I know you don't like Anthony Richardson. But keep going, Mike.
Carlton. So for those that don't know, I went to undergrad at Troy. Carlton Marshall. I've kept up with him for a long time. He's a middle linebacker. He's undersized, but guess what? I think he broke the record for most tackles in college football history this year. This guy has a nose for the football. He can get to the quarterback when he needs to, and he's a surefire tackler. Troy usually plays 3 or 4 large Power 5 conference teams every year, and even in those games, they played Florida, they played Georgia, they played South Carolina, Ole Miss this year. They held Ole Miss to one of their fewest points scored this year. Carlton Marshall was the stalwart for that defense, and he was the reason why they were able to do that. Carlton Marshall, I believe, he reminds me of some of these guys in the NFL that they may be undersized, but they always find themselves stuck in the NFL, having 10-year careers. And why not have a guy like him on your roster? You can get him in the 7th round. He's local-ish, playing at Troy. So he might have a few people coming up watching him. But, he's a good player. Jeremy Banks, I thought Jeremy Banks was a guy that could be drafted in the top 3 rounds during the season, but he struggled with off-the-field incidents. He's also undersized. He has some holes in his game that I think under the right tutelage, he could become a very serviceable player in the NFL. I know the Falcons are deep in linebacker, so he may be a practice squad guy to start off. But Tennessee didn't have a good defense. And you can blame it on the talent. You can blame it on the coaching. I think it's a little bit of both. But Jeremy Banks wasn't the problem. I think it was a lot of coaching issues. And I expect Tennessee to be a lot better on defense this year if they want to actually compete throughout November, because we all know it doesn't matter what you do. If you're not playing well in November, you can lose 2 or 3 games in November, as Tennessee did last year, which allowed them to fall out of contention. But Jeremy Banks is a guy that could be one of those guys that fall out the draft, and one of those guys you can sign as an undrafted free agent and have him as a camp body, see what he can do, and then potentially add him to your practice squad. But that's my mock draft. Like I said, I'm very happy with like the top 4 rounds. If we can trade back, I know a lot of people don't know about Mr. Cansey, but I'm telling you, go watch some film on Mr. Cansey. The scouts are giving him Aaron Donald comps, not me. I gave him a Grady Jarrett. You can't go wrong with either. But we can somehow get Nolan Smith, B.J. Ojulari, Eli Ricks, Tyler Scott, or Tre'Vivius Hodges Tomlinson. Hey, I don't care if we don't hit on anything else in the draft. If we can get those guys, that's a winning draft for me. But I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Ricks and Nate.
I think you did an awesome job with that, especially for a trade back, because B.J. Ojulari and Nolan in Atlanta would be scary, because BJ was supposed to be a first rounder for a while, but LSU didn't have the best season on defense, so that hurt him. I love the Tyler Scott move because he's a taking over the top guy. Stetson Bennett gonna sell tickets because Georgia fans gonna show up just to see old Stetson. And if Desmond Ridder do something stupid, they're gonna go out here and say start Stetson. So yeah, I hope you're ready for that. But you had I love the mock from top to bottom. I think you did an excellent job with it. And Kalijah Cansey, I am very familiar with Kalijah Cansey and would love to have him in a Falcon uniform as well. What do you think about Armand?
Okay. Yeah, at first I'm not gonna lie. I was looking at the draft. I was like, "Ooh, this is really interesting." Okay. So I see both of you took Tre'Vius Tomlinson. So maybe y'all got some inside information in regards to the Falcons liking him. So keep your eye on that. You both took defensive tackles as the first pick, which is very interesting because when you talk about needs, you both mentioned defensive end and corner. And I know that you addressed those more in the second, third rounds. Are you not comfortable with some of the defensive ends that are? We'll stick to strictly defensive ends because I know there's obviously I don't think Will Anderson is within range for you all, but just want to know your thoughts on Tyree Wilson from Texas A&M, Miles Murphy from Clemson. I know we've briefly discussed Luke Van Ness as well. I know that the Falcons have had some history. Okay, I don't know if I know the Falcons have had.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. So basically, you're asking us our thoughts on
the defensive ends.
Okay. So I think it's the way that it fell. I think it's the way that our mocks fell. Not so much that we didn't want a DN, because I think Tyree Wilson's not making out the top 5. I think he's gonna go to Seattle probably. I would love Miles Murphy. That was one of my favorite players throughout the whole regular season to come to Atlanta, depending on where we fell in the draft. Lucas Van Ness, I wouldn't be opposed to him either, but I think it's more so the way it fell, because Jalen Carter fell to me at 8. So that made me go ahead and say, you know what, take him, because it probably would have been Nolan Smith if it wasn't him. But I like the defensive ends of this draft for sure. I just wonder if the Falcons are gonna give Arnold and Lorenzo another opportunity to be the starting edges. But I do think that in some capacity that it will be addressed in the draft. But I'm not gonna say that it's not possible to happen. I do think if it's there, that they could possibly go edge. But yeah, I'm a fan of the edge rushers in the class. I just think it's kind of how the board fell.
For me, I want Tyree Wilson, but from Jump Street, I've had him going actually to Seattle at number 5. Now we can get him, cool. I would take him in a heartbeat, but that's the main reason why I did what I did. As far as Myles Murphy, I'm not sold on him. The reason I'm not sold on him is because I think he's going to be a good player in the right system. I actually have the Seahawks taking him and Tyree Wilson, but the reason I don't think he's a solid fit for the Falcons, it makes me nervous when we take defensive ends early. We don't have a good track record. I know this is a whole different regime, but that trauma is still there for me. The guy at Arkansas, Jamal Anderson, you got Vic Beasley, you got all these guys that we've taken, and just looking at the tape, I see some of them in him, some of the same things that they did when they were projected to be high drafted first round picks at that position. And Myles Murphy, while he has some elite traits, it scares me because later in the season, he kind of tailed off. When Clemson needed him the most, he wasn't there to kind of pick up the offense, because the offense was struggling with DJ. And when they made that quarterback switch, you would think the defense would step up even more because they knew they had to. And Brian Breesy and all the other guys, they did. Myles Murphy didn't. He didn't have any sacks over the last 4 games. So I'm just kind of concerned about, is he that guy that can step in and be that guy you need him to be at the 8th overall pick? And I don't think he is. I think there's a significant gap between him and Tyree Wilson, and Will Anderson, of course. And that's why I went with what I went. I don't think Christian Gonzalez is going to be there. Otherwise, I would have went with Christian Gonzalez at 8 to pair with AJ Terrell. Like I said, I want is either Peter Skoll, Jalen Carter, or Christian Gonzalez, and I didn't think the early 2 would be there. And I just went with something different. Could have went with Peter Skoll, but I went with, hey, let's still address defense while adding some more draft capital so we can add more to the defense. So that was my thinking right there.
Okay. Nah, I definitely understand where you're coming from.
Yes, sir. I think so. Does that sum up your questions, Armand?
Yeah. That sums up all my questions, man. I think you both covered a lot of ground on the Falcons. They've been very, very active this offseason. I think in my opinion, they've made some good moves to improve their football team. The NFC South is open. I think anybody can win that division. The quarterbacks of each division are still, at the moment questionable. Obviously, I've had the Baker Mayfield experience, and so have the Carolina Panthers. So I really do hope that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I wish them the best of luck, because that can go sour extremely quickly if that doesn't get worked out. And obviously, with them losing Donovan Smith in free agency, Baker gets happy when pressure's on him. So he will roll out to his right, and that could lead to sacks like for Arnold Ebukheneksi, or I don't know how to say his name, but that could lead to a lot of opportunities for the Falcons and other teams of the division. The Saints they're in a transition period, and I don't know what type of transition they're figuring out right now. I think them obviously not having their first round pick affected them a little bit. We don't know what's going to happen with Alvin Kamara. I do believe they still have the 29th pick. So we'll talk about them later down the line. But they're an older team. I think that their Super Bowl window has closed, and I think that they need to determine if they're going to truly start over. And obviously Carolina traded up from 9-1. They have a lot of needs, and I think they're looking for a new face to the franchise. Potentially could be a team that you guys, might be in competition with, for the near future. But those are all my questions. I think you all did a wonderful job.
We appreciate that, bro. There's one final question that I did get. I didn't get a chance to type it up. I want to at least hit this one before we get off. The question is, we talked about the players already. Is Arthur Smith the right coach for this roster? That's a great question. Personally speaking, I'm 50-50 on Arthur Smith, have been from day one. But the tricky thing about that is this group competed their butt off last season, every single game. I have to give them that credit because there were games where Arthur Smith's play calling was absolutely goofy at times. It cost us ball games, but those guys really played their butt off week in and week out. There wasn't a game with, like Mike mentioned earlier in the stream, there wasn't a game with the exception of the Panthers game where the the Bengals game, where the Falcons were totally out of the game. Every game they played in this season, they were either had a shot to win at the end. It was a one-score game. It was an opportunity for them to win the game at the end. Depending on how the game played out, But I think that the guys on the team competes hard for Arthur Smith. However, I will say this. I don't think Arthur Smith has a major amount of time on his hands. I think Terry Fontenot has more of a safety net than Arthur Smith. Because to me, if you're trending towards this team really being a better roster, because at this point, Arthur Smith might have bought himself more time if Tom Brady was still in the division. But with Tom Brady now retired from Tampa, the Falcons have a legitimate shot to win the division this year. Not next year, this year. If the Falcons somehow don't win more than 7 games, to me, Arthur Smith is on the hot seat. Because you won 7 games last year with Tom Brady in your division. You won 7 games the year before that with Matt Ryan as your quarterback in the past, way past his prime. So if you come out with another 7-10 season, to me, he's on the hot seat. And you have to find you a guy that can get your roster going forward. Because now this is the first year where I'm going to truly say Arthur Smith could potentially be on the hot seat if the season does not go well for the Falcons. Because we knew first year, you got the Dan Quinn guys, you got Thomas Dimitroff guys, you got to get those guys off your team. You want to see who you're going to keep on your roster or not. Year 2, we had the biggest cap hit in NFL history. So we were basically filling a roster with $5. So you got what you could get out the team. But this year, you have money, you have draft picks, and you have a little more flexibility because you've gotten a chance to kind of keep certain guys at the 2 seasons in. If this team does not win more than 7 games, I think Arthur Smith is on the hot seat. I'm not going to throw the title fired just yet. I think that's a little too premature. But if this team doesn't have at least a 7 to 8 win season or better, there's a possibility he could be gone. Now, if the Falcons totally finish last place, he's out of here. So that's where I kind of stand with Arthur Smith at this point. I think the guys compete well, which I respect from that perspective. But I do think Arthur Smith, I think it depends really if I can say if he's the right coach. I think he has potential to be a good coach. He's not a great coach, but we just gotta have to see how the roster plays out. And the 2 comments real quick before Mike answer is Arthur Smith should be on the hot seat. As again, it's definitely an Arthur Smith absolutely not sold on the coach, which Falcon fans, and I'm sure a lot of Falcon fans are neck and neck with that. It's some are sold, some is like, get him out of here. So that's kind of where I stand. I'm on the fence on both ends with Arthur Smith. I want to see what Mike got to say about
that. Arthur Smith, like many Falcons fans, I thought Dan Quinn should have been gone the year before. He actually got, that late season push. Uncle Arthur Blank, is a very gracious person. And he usually moves a year too late. But when it comes to Arthur Smith, I'm bought in. If you have a plan, even if we're not seeing the immediate results, I can deal with it. Personally, if I have a business or if I have a team that follows me, I'm not gonna say we're gonna go out and be successful. We're gonna make this much money here and there immediately. But if you have a solid foundation down, and you make the right moves, and you don't see the results immediately, but you see the progress. You can see progress without seeing the results, and I see the progress. And I think he's made some outstanding hires. I think Falcons fans need to go and do some research on Ryan Nielsen and Jared Gray. Jared Gray is a legend. And to make him associate head coach, man, I think you are in for a pleasant surprise with his defense this year, especially if we make the right moves, continue right moves in free agency and the draft. But I see the foundation has been set. You can always say that in previous regimes with the Falcons, but the foundation is set. We're gonna run the ball. We're not gonna go out and throw for 500 yards, 400 yards, and we may only have 2 or 3 300-yard games. But guess what? We're gonna run that ball. The other team's gonna know we're gonna run it. And if you want to stack the box, that's why we got to get a guy like Tyler Scott or some other guys. We're gonna hit you over the top. I believe in his vision. Now he just has to execute. The vision, the foundation. I see all of that. You got to execute. And regardless of all that stuff I just said, you can throw it out the window because this is a league where it's a wins or loss league. So you got 2 straight seasons, 7 wins. Guess what? if you think this year's roster was bad, last year's roster was historically bad. I kid you not. Go look at that roster from last year. That roster was pathetic. You could probably have 4 SEC teams. I'll let you throw in Vanderbilt and maybe South Carolina, not this year, but last year, South Carolina, and you can add any other SEC team, and I guarantee you, those guys that are now in the NFL were a better team in college than that defense and that roster from that Falcons team 2 years ago. That was a terrible team, but he won 7 games. He was competitive. They were even more competitive this year. I'm going to take it to another sport. Think about the Warriors when they had Mark Jackson as coach. And I'm not saying we should move on to another coach to get the guys over the hump because we haven't seen Arthur Smith be able to get them over the hump yet because this is 3rd year. A little too early for all that. But they had the guys. They were even making playoff runs. But they couldn't get over that hump. This is the year that I believe the Falcons get over that hump. You brought in some guys that have played in the Super Bowls. You brought in some guys that have played in crunch time deep in the playoffs with the Saints. Anyamata playing in that. He was on that team that messed over against the Rams with that pass interference. You brought in guys with playoff experience that are veterans that can help these younger guys grow and get to the next level. I think the execution has been flawless this offseason. So with that said, if you can win 7 games with those 2 rosters that we just had, there's no excuse why you can't win 9, 10, 11 games this year. So to what Nate said, yeah, if you win 7 games this year, you're in some trouble because you got a pretty decent roster compared to what you've been having. So I expect no less than 9 wins. If you can get the 9 wins, cool. But less than 9 wins, they turn the heat up. Turn the heat up.
Hey, Mike, I'm going to go as further than this. I'm going to say we need to win a division. Straight up. Because the Falcons have not had a winning season since 2017. They've been in that building since 2017. You can't go 7 years in a row with a losing record at this point. And I think that's another thing that's going against him too. I think that he can't go out there and have another losing season at the rate that we're going because I get it. You had to come past the Matt Ryan era, had to go through Dan Quinn, all that stuff. But like we are both saying, if Arthur Smith don't get this team to a winning record, we're not even gonna go to we're not even gonna say playoffs. As y'all see, me and Mike are both in agreement on. It has to be a winning record. We're not talking about playoffs yet. Winning record. If you 9-8, guess what? That gives you some more time. You let this team go 7-10 again. Don't be surprised he the first head coach fired. And that's just the God honest truth of this league. Like Mike said, you in a league that wins. And when you look at your whole division, you've had a step further than everybody in the division. The problem with the Panthers right now is the Panthers might have been neck and neck as far as who had the upper edge, but losing DJ Moore, I'm actually a little nervous about their offensive weapons. I think they did add a couple of guys in the free agency with Miles Sanders and the guys like that, but I still have my doubts on their offense in particular. But when you look at Tampa and New Orleans, these are teams with veteran talent, but you can't really make a lot of moves because either you're broke or you need to blow it up, but you're scared to blow it up because you're down there in Baton Rouge and New Orleans. I'm going to go ahead and throw some jazz at y'all boys down there in Louisiana, thinking you're going to win the division and go deep in the playoffs when you don't even have a competent corporate. You got Derek Carr now. I give y'all Derek Carr, but that's your number one signing of free agency, so whatever. Anyways, again, you better win 9 games if you're Arthur Smith, or we're going to be having a whole nother conversation on this stream. Go ahead, Armand.
Y'all gave a lot of information, and me being unbiased, it's interesting because how long has Arthur Smith been the coach of the team?
Since 21.
So this is his third season.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, y'all. Okay. So y'all must be pretty fed up with him. I feel like if you ready to can a coach after 3 seasons, you kind of feel like he's not the guy. Personally, in my opinion, because the Browns, if I'm switching to the Browns, Stefanski's entering his 4th season, and I think that we're at a way different pace than where you all are at. It's like we don't make the playoffs at all. Stefanski's gone. Like it's like Arthur Smith. I know y'all kind of y'all scale is a little back and forth because of the quarterback situation in y'all division, but I think he still got to build his team, I mean, I know that y'all excited about Ritter because he played 4 games, but it's a lot, riding on him, like you said, 1 season. And I think that he has I think he got 8 to 10 games because we know Taylor Heineke. We know this. Taylor Heineke will come in there and he will light a spark. And we know y'all not a throwing team, but Taylor gonna throw that ball. He ain't scared. And let's be honest, y'all have invested 2 high draft picks, 2 top 10 draft picks in a wide receiver and a tight end. So you're telling me that you're gonna run the ball 25 times and you just invested 2 draft picks in a wide receiver and a tight end under a coach. Is that on the coach or is that on the front office? Because it seems like they ain't on the same page. And I already know, and I know Falcon fans ain't gonna like this. I told you about this. Kyle Pitts pick did not make sense to me. It did not make sense to me when you had a guy, Justin Fields, who right down the street from wherever he at, to be on the coach of the the quarterback of the Falcons. Now, if I think this was the case where Justin Fields is your quarterback, and this is Arthur Smith's 3rd year, I think that this would definitely be he ain't gonna work here. This ain't gonna work. Because that's 3rd year, and you get in a territory where your quarterback is programmed to work under this coach and this offense, and this ain't gonna work. So I think draft build y'all at the place like still kind of build the roster. I think that Atlanta is trying to assess. They're monitoring Lamar, I think, like you said, Nate, for next year. And so if you get a couple more pieces, let's say y'all had 2 or 3 good draft picks this year, and y'all got money. And now it's like, okay, well, Ritter ain't the guy. Taylor's a career backup. Let's say y'all draft Stetson and sell some tickets. Okay, we got $45, $50 million now. Lamar is available. We have our 1st round pick. I think we're comfortable making this move now. And I think that would make sense. Now, I agree. Now, if y'all just like outright just crater and tank, like win 4 to 5 games, then I think that's a different type of discussion. If y'all just outright just, it don't work. But give him a year, because it takes time to build a system. And if he was the Titans coach, so and if you guys get a receiver, he likes those big receivers. They had AJ Brown. I think Rashee Rice is in play in the second round for you all. That's a name I think to look out for. He's about 6'2", 208. He can fly. I do want to ask one question.
Uh-oh.
What would be the worst case scenario at number 8 for you all, or what would piss you off at number 8 if it was the selection? So let's say this. What if, and I don't think this will happen. So let's say you talked about offensive line. So what if they took another receiver at 8? What if they took Jackson Smith and Jigba at 8?
I'm cutting the string.
You cutting the string. Or let's say what if hypothetically one of the quarterbacks fell at number 8? What are you going to do?
I'm cutting the string.
Are you telling me if one of the quarterbacks fell at 8, let's say hypothetically Anthony Richardson fell at 8, you telling me that wouldn't be no serious discussion about that?
I'm good on him.
You good on? Okay, that's fair.
I would be upset if we took a receiver or we took Lucas Van Ness from Iowa. That Lucas Van Ness wasn't even a full-time starter, and that's giving me Marvin Williams vibes. Like, all my Atlanta sports are tied into each other. We took Marvin Williams with a top 5 pick, and he never started for North Carolina.
Not Marvin.
I'm not saying he can't be a great player, or he might be a future Hall of Famer. I don't know, but that would really piss me off if we took him at defensive end with 8th overall pick or a receiver.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you brought up and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because this is actually a real conversation, because the Falcons have had the awkward pick the last 2 years. Am I lying, Mike? Because it was trending in the direction of Micah Parsons might be a Falcon, and here come Kyle Pitts. It's like, why? Kyle Pitts could have fell to, if you were going to go get me an offensive player, you could have got Jamar Chase if you were going to go get you an offensive playmaker at number 4. That's all I'm saying. But then this year with Drake London, it was like, okay, you could have got Jordan Davis or somebody like that on the D line and on the defense. So I think that's the one tricky thing about Terry Fontenot. I see he's a solid GM, but I feel like you brought up a legitimate point that, are those two on the same page in regards to the front office and the coaching staff? Because I will say this, and there was a question that we didn't get a chance to hit, to be like, you brought in Jonnu Smith to be out there with Kyle Pitts. You're going to run a 2 tight end system, but don't make that a potential shot where you got these 2 tight ends and you say, well, screw going to get a wide receiver that's talented enough to be wide receiver 2, will rock out with Zacchaeus or somebody like that. What you want to do is, as you said, you want to put an offense together. You do not have Derrick Henry in your backfield. This is no shade at Tyler Algier. He is not Derrick Henry. You do not have a Derrick Henry who's a do-it-all back. So you got to put you a roster together, and I do agree with that 100% as far as the target could be 2024 for the Falcons. I think this year, that's why I didn't want to stamp the division just yet. Although I think they have a great chance of winning the division, I think winning a winning record needs to be your goal here for 23. If not, making the playoffs and winning the division. But in 2024, at this point, if you go in the top 24 and you don't have a winning record, they gonna fire it all. They gonna go ahead and get rid of probably Terry and Arthur. They're gonna get a 2-for-1 deal, just like Dan Quinn and what's his name got in 2020. So I can agree with that. I think that collectively they got 2 years, but I think Arthur Smith may be on a shorter leash because of the win-loss record, basically.
Two things for me. I'm cool on Arthur Smith. My only, like I said, I believe in the vision, the foundation, everything. Um, my only thing is if you won 7 games each of the last 2 seasons with historically bad rosters, and you don't win at least 7 games this year, and you got a better roster, a substantially better roster, then I got to start thinking like you might not be the guy. I don't think that's going to happen, but that's my threshold. If you don't win, if you win 7 games or fewer, there's an issue because these last 2 seasons with these rosters, I don't even want to go down the list. Like I could just say Jalen Mayfield is a starter on this roster. Wouldn't be starting for too many teams, other teams, and that's you got Cornell Armstrong running after Jamar Chase. He's a practice squad player for every NFL team. No disrespect to him, he's still getting money and paying and taking care of his family. I'm happy for him, but for this team, we got too many practice. We had too many practice squad level players playing. So if you can't win more than 7 games with a better roster this year, even with Desmond Ridder as your quarterback, there's a problem. My second thing is I really don't. Of course, hindsight is 2020. You know, who wouldn't want to have Micah Parsons? I honestly don't have an issue with Kyle Pitts. I think it's more so like Armand said, where y'all on the same page because the talent is there. And I think the most important thing that someone can receive is the confidence and the praise of your peers. Think about this: George Kittle, Travis Kelce, probably 2 future Hall of Famers. Definitely Travis Kelce. They're the 2 best tight ends in the league. Got Dallas Goedert and some other guys that can argue about that. But both of them on podcasts in the last 6 months have gone on to say, what the hell is Atlanta doing? You got Kyle Pitts at tight end. The guys are free. You got Travis Kelce, a bona fide first ballot Hall of Famer, saying, this guy got more talent than me. Why he not getting the ball? Like, I don't know what their coaching staff is doing. Why you not putting him in positions to be successful? Do this, do that. So the talent is there. From what I hear, he has just as much talent as Micah Parsons at different positions, of course. Probably even a higher ceiling as a level player he can be. And that's coming from your peers. So what that tells me is something got to give this year. I don't want to hear about him having 4 red zone targets through 10 weeks of the season. That better not happen. I don't care if you're running a team or not. You got Kyle Pitts over there throwing the ball. Can't nobody cover him. You got to who can you put on him? A linebacker not going to stay with him. I don't care if it's Fred Warner, one of the best middle linebackers in the NFL. You going to put a safety on him? Okay, good luck. You going to put a corner? Too small. He better not have 4 red zone targets through week 10. Get him the ball. I don't care what you got to do. And this has been an issue dating back to Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. Julio is a first ballot Hall of Famer, but if his detractors are going to talk about his lack of red zone targets, and that was throughout his entire career. I don't know what it is with Atlanta and they star players not getting the red zone targets. Stop being cute. Stop trying to outsmart people. Get the ball to the person that you know is a mismatch. The Kansas City Chiefs don't care about people knowing that Travis Kelce going to get the ball in the red zone. Guess what? He going to get it, and he had 8+ red zone touchdowns last year. I don't want to hear it no more. Get on the ball.
I agree.
Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. I know somebody said wanted my Ohio State boy Wilson at wide receiver, but we went with London. I can agree with that. But hey, they wanted to get, someone who could do some 50-50 balls, who can, run. Well, Wilson's a better route runner than London by far. I think that's very evident. And being a Falcons fan has given me PTSD. Oh, Lord. Can relate to that as a Browns fan. We have someone saying Carolina winning the division. Don't be disrespectful. We talk about the Falcons right now, so we ain't going to start nothing at the moment.
Also, you got to think about who we had at quarterback last year. Marcus Mariota was thrown over. He'll overthrow a slant. He'll overthrow everything. Yeah. So as much as Garrett Wilson would have helped, I don't know how much it would have helped with him at quarterback.
That's why I said it was rough watching that Browns game because they threw the ball like 12 times, I think, the whole game. And Mariota just like, we're not putting it in his hands anymore. And we go hand it off to Caleb Huntley, and it took over. Yeah, so I didn't get my eighth pick. I didn't do a whole mock draft like y'all did. Y'all real detailed. I love it. I love it. As of right now, I think that I would take Christian Gonzalez, the corner, and I took into consideration the switch of the defense. And sometimes switching the defense can actually benefit current players on your roster. And I see that there's a hole on the other side of A.J. Terrell. You bring in a safety as Jesse Bates. You really need to fortify that safety. I mean, that secondary, bringing that in. You still have to go against Mike Evans and Chris Godwin every year. You know, you got Chris Olave. We don't know what Michael Thomas has left in the tank after a couple years of injuries. And Carolina wide receiver group is a great value. Walmart right now. It's bare. It's bare. There ain't nothing on the shelves. COVID, toilet paper all gone. So and Nick, sorry about that, but that's just the truth. That's just the truth as an unbiased fan from the AFC North. But I think Christian Gonzalez would be a great fit. We've seen the success last year with Sauce Gardner taken in the top 5. If you have a tall, rangy corner who can man his side of the field with, instincts, coverability. Gonzalez didn't have a lot of penalties last year. He did play somewhat mostly zone, but I think he has the size and the athleticism to play man. Having Bates, I know that the other safety position is also in question, but I believe that safeties can be drafted later. And you guys will need a safety who can play up in the box and handle that short to intermediate area within coverage. So I think that can be rectified. Now, if they wanted to go defensive end, I really like Nolan Smith. I think it's a possibility. He always reported this man on the string. Okay, that's all right. But I think Nolan Smith, I've said it with you all. I think his ceiling is 5. I think he's a Seattle. That's the prototypical Seattle defensive end. But I think Nolan Smith, just like Trayvon Walker, having the traits, testing extremely well at the combine. He comes from a strong program that's back-to-back national champions. The Georgia Bulldogs in Nate's background. But if I had to pick, right now, I would probably pick Christian Gonzalez. I think he would be a great tandem with A.J. Terrell, and that would take pressure off of Jesse Bates and A.J. He doesn't have to follow the best receiver on every team. They can take turns, obviously, when facing the Buccaneers, that they can handle Evans and Godwin the best way possible. So. But I think the Falcons are, I would say, cautiously optimistic. I just hope that they're on the same page. Like I said, you invested two top 10 picks into skill positions, and so I think that if they aren't utilized right, I think that could be a big reason why Arthur Smith could be on the hot seat. But I also at the same time, it's like I don't know what Desmond Ridder is. I mean, you have to see a quarterback at least 16 games to get a good assessment. And if the Falcons are 500, I think he may be still there, depending on how they're performing on offense. But, what if they are like in the playoff hunt 2 games back? You got Taylor Heineke there sitting. And once we know this, once you go to that backup quarterback, it's really, really hard to go back to another guy, because his confidence is going to be shot. So I think that's definitely something to consider. But Nate, I do agree with the speed aspect. I do think you all need to get faster. I think you guys have a lot of jump ball options, which I think is great. But you got to get somebody who can take the top off of the field, and maybe putting Cordell back in a slot, on certain downs with Algier on the field, just to give some different looks and different dimensions could help.
Hey, I agree with that 100%. And that's gonna wrap up this Falcon show for the day. Y'all guys got a good 2 hours out of us, man. Y'all were tuned in and gave us a lot of great comments. Armand came with some super elite questions, which we surely appreciate. And our next show that'll be coming sometime probably this week, we'll get a chance to schedule it out. We're gonna be talking about the defending NFC champion Philadelphia Eagles, who is picking 10 because the Saints thought they were going to the Super Bowl last year and they was in the same spot. That's us. Anyways, we're going to be talking about the Tennessee Titans, the New York Jets, and the New England Patriots on the upcoming show. But before we get out of here, Armand, Mike, I got anything else you guys want to say before we get out of here?
Great show per usual. I appreciate Armand coming up with some excellent questions. He opened it up with a very, very difficult question, which was, what do you think the strength of this team was? But hey, I enjoy somebody that comes with the fire right out the gate. It sets the tone, so I appreciate him. I appreciate everybody that tuned in.
Yeah, just thank you for having me, moderate the pod. Obviously, like I don't know much about the Falcons. I mean, I know a little bit, but not in depth like you all, the subject matter. But I'm glad to have learned more about your team, the direction where you all believe that you all will go, and we'll just see in the next month and so with the draft. So stay tuned. I wish y'all the best.
Yes, sir. And on that note, everyone, you have a good rest of the weekend. Get ready to tune into maybe some more upsets. Hold on, one more thing I gotta hit before we get out of here. That's all I want to group. Hey, man.
Hey, Nick, you want me to come try out? Can I get an invite to camp? I'm a Buckeye. Hey, CJ Stroud, man, what's up? What's up? I got it. My catch radius ain't all there, but I could, bow, drop it in the bread basket. He good at that.
Hey, man. All right, y'all. On that note, y'all have a great rest of the weekend. This has been another Draft Talk with Nate, Armand, and Mike. Y'all have a great Saturday.